We are back with an awesome topic today that could be the most important thing that you ever do in your life. It doesn't matter if you got married, if you've had children, if you've accomplished great things. This is going to be your best, the best thing you've ever done, and we're talking about why most gym owners never get rich. I believe there are, is it 18,000? Don't quote me on that, but I believe there's 18,000 training studios, and 85% of the studio owners make $30,000 or less, which means that only 15% are making enough to, I would say, to be sustainable, especially in this day and age with all the inflation that's occurred. How can you possibly, unless it's not the main thing, there's somebody else involved that's contributing financially. It's going to be tough. Some of you have heard this, and if you have, bear with me. Some of you, maybe you're a newer listener, but going back a while now, I was in my late 20s, and I had been kind of neglecting, just to say the least, as an understatement, I had been neglecting some of these issues, some of the things that I'll be talking about. I kept putting it off. I knew deep down that things were tight. We were falling behind on things. I just didn't want to face it, and I kept thinking that it would work out somehow. I would get a big client, or I'd get a new gig, or something would happen to get me into a better spot. And that thing that I was looking for, it never actually came. I didn't get the thing that bailed me out. What I got instead was a knock on the door and a 6'5" guy loaded with tattoos. And he took my car. He took my car because we were behind several months on the payment. It didn't matter at that point. That was the moment where the what do you call it? The day of reckoning, so to speak. That I really had to. I couldn't keep running. It was all right there. This was it. I had to. Definitely had to do some different things. It's such a common thing. Obviously, my work is in the fitness industry, but I'm sure it's common anywhere. This idea that tomorrow will get better, next week will get better. And what I've noticed is the ones that change, they have to have something like this happening. We'll call it a trigger. It's like my friend who was only in his 50s, which I'm not there yet, but it's not that far. And his doctors told him, hey, you gotta do something because your numbers are not looking good. You got to make some changes. And he didn't, and he ended up having a massive heart attack and having some pretty intense surgery, some really difficult recovery. And it was because there was that change, that trigger wasn't there for him. And that's what I want to do for you today. I want to be that trigger, and there's some things that we can. There's obviously some things that not everything is like so black and white. Like do this and then this happens, but we can really look at things and say, okay, these are some of the things that I have the great opportunity to work with. I would argue the most financially successful gym owners out there. I've worked with people that weren't as successful, and I've seen the different behaviors. So I'm going to share some of them, and as I go through these, you can look at this. I just want to address. Let's address the elephant in the podcast studio, which is, what do I mean by rich? Most gym owners never get rich, and that's not really. I don't think that's really a term that you could define, because I could almost counter any definition of rich for the most part, because there's so many different phases and levels and spectrums. It really just depends. It's not always apples to apples. If person A has a $3 million net worth, but is stressed out of his mind because there's also some debt hanging over his head, and he's got two $1,200 car payments and kids in private school and whatever it is. That doesn't. Would you call that rich? I mean, I guess you could. So I'd like you to think of this in just terms of financially successful for you, and that usually would entail having the margin to do the things you want to do, to be set up. Maybe you're in the building phase, which is a great place to be. You're working toward that. It's like that idea that you're successful when you're doing the things that successful people do. So if you're doing some of the things I talk about today, you can consider yourself financially successful, and you're on your way to becoming a quote unquote rich, whether that's from a net worth standpoint, a freedom standpoint, an income standpoint. Income we have to be careful with. It's important, but we certainly know that income does not guarantee somebody being rich, having freedom, even having wealth. Many people who have tremendous incomes have very little to show for it. But let me get into the three things we could look at for today. And the first one is relying too much on debt. And debt is, it may not be black and white. I mean, it could be. I'm pretty adverse to debt, especially at this point in my life. I know there are people that say they use it for leverage and to build wealth. I'll just share my experience. For the most part, there's always going to be exceptions. There's always going to be that guy that you see that's posting, that's got all the high leverage and things seem to be great. I will argue a couple of things there. One is things may not be as great as you think. There's oftentimes lots of stress that comes with the risk. And I also feel confident in saying that I almost never see, because I really get in the weeds with people and really see what's going on with the numbers and the family and the personal finances. Almost never see somebody who is highly reliant on debt strategies that have any type of financial success or wealth. 9 times out of 10, it's the opposite, because we think we're smart, we think we could figure this all out, but then life has a way of not working out how we thought. I will say that relying too much on debt is a huge wealth killer. This idea that we could have anything we want if we're just willing to pay $100 or a few $100 per month, and then off to work I go because I have to satisfy the debt, and I'm never able to build wealth with that. I mean, we could look at pure numbers. A lot of the consumer debt, especially, it's anywhere from 16 to 20 to 26%. It's, if you just look at the math alone, it's really difficult to build wealth that way. Or it's impossible, I'll say. If you're looking at investing, we're looking for a 10% return, let's say. So you could argue right off the bat that any debt over 10% is completely going the opposite way, and even lower than that makes it tough, because then you add in inflation and all the other distractions that come along with growing a business, a career, and some wealth. I think getting out of debt, getting a plan to get out of debt, and staying out of debt is I'm not going to say your fastest path to wealth. I could say that, but what I'm going to say is your most highest chance for achieving what you want. I would say that would be the place that I would start, is looking at and then I wouldn't even separate. This kind of debt is okay. I would really, especially if things are not where you want them to be, I would look at that and say, okay, let's get on a plan to get out of debt. And there's resources for that. I'm happy to help with that. If you need anything, reach out to me. If you're interested in either lessening your debt, getting completely debt free, then I can show you the path. I'd be happy to do that. So reach out to me. You can hit me up any way that you'd like, social media or email. And we'll move on to the next one. The next one is this idea, way too common, that I don't need to do anything else other than my business if I want to achieve financial success or achieve financial freedom. I think that's a huge mistake. It's a huge wealth killer. This idea that I'm just going to keep putting what are the fancy terms here? I'm going to reinvest my profits, AKA there's no profit, right? Because reinvesting your profits is just increasing your expenses. And it's just the way my mind works. I love the idea of having a system, of having percentage allocations for different things. It's sort of like this self-correcting system for you to reach your financial goals. Is you just decide in advance that I'm gonna quote unquote reinvest in my business, because that's important. That's one of the jobs of profit, is for future growth. But if I keep doing that and I only do that, then I'm never gonna have anything else, and that could be a problem because we just never know how things are gonna go. If we're putting all of our eggs in one basket, that basket could get flipped over. There's lots of factors that go into selling a business, especially selling the gym business. I'm all for that, and I think it's a great aspiration. But I don't want you to have that being your only avenue for wealth and financial success, because it's also like an end game type thing. You might say, well, when I get much older, I'm going to cash out, and that's going to be my retirement. I just think that's super risky. Any business carries a lot of risk. There's lots of unknowns in the market, lots of unknowns in our particular industry. We want to, as Maya Angelou said, we want to prepare for the worst, expect the best, and be unsurprised by anything in between. And that applies perfectly here. We're gonna expect the best. We're gonna plan for the worst, meaning what if we can't retire off of our gym, and we're gonna have other options for that. And delaying that too much can really shoot us in the foot, because that the biggest advantage you have when it comes to developing financial freedom is time. If we keep quote unquote reinvesting in our business, we keep doing this and doing that, and we never actually decide to make money today, then we are just going to make things that much harder for ourselves as time passes. That's the way that I would think through that, is what am I doing today to make money, to build toward my future? Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but today. It's like this psychological trick that we put ourselves through, and we keep telling ourselves that we're going to do it next week, next month. That's a big thing. And that's going to lead me to the third point here in this bite-sized episode that I'd love your feedback on. And this one has a few little subpoints, and it's their own operating system. When I look at the most quote-unquote successful, financially successful gym owners, and I look at those that don't quite get there, a big part of that is the owner's operating system. It's this idea of investing in yourself, working on yourself, that all that is really important. It's things like, I'll start with the mindset. It's things like the mindset and the attitude. Not always, but because words can be cheap, but I can oftentimes tell who's going to do really well and who's going to struggle a little bit more. It really comes down, just like your clients. You could probably do that with your clients. When they come in, they sign up. You have different extremes. Sometimes you have the guy or the gal who says, I'm going to do everything, I'm going to be your best client. And sometimes those are big letdowns because they kind of came out of the gate too fast. It's kind of like these steady people that are just willing to do the work. I think steady is a powerful way to think of that. Yeah, there's going to be bursts and sprints and all of that, but it's that steady. I'm doing it. It's a tortoise in the hare. It takes time. There's no way around that, because to think about it, the skills and the character have to get developed, and they can't get developed without time. It's like anything else. It's like, imagine just going out there. My daughter wants to get into a new activity. She's thinking about volleyball. She's thinking about acting. She's thinking about a list of things, horseback riding, all these things that she's looking to get into. And we were having a great conversation yesterday on our daddy-daughter date, and we talked about this idea that it's going to be tough at first. Nowadays, if you're getting into a sport, like especially for the first time at 14, my kids have been in that sport since they're like 2 years old, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be a little bit of an uphill trek for a little bit. I have guys that I teach. This one guy I think of, he's in his early 40s, and sometimes much older, but he's in his early 40s and just started jiu-jitsu. That's not easy. There's guys that are much younger, they've been training much longer, and we have to realize that it's going to take time. It's like, imagine just coming into something like that and expecting to be great right off the bat. You're not going to be great in business. You're not going to be great in finances and these habits, and it's just going to take time. It's going to take character development. The very best, they understand that. Yeah, they're pushing and they're growing. That's part of it, and that's a huge part of it. I don't want to minimize that, but it's that commitment to do the work. And if we want to get super specific, I would say it's the ones who do the work financially, because they get the last point that I made, which is like, it has to be today. It's just like our clients. I'll get to my eating, I'll get to my walks, I'll get to my better sleep, I'll get to it when the kids get older and I have more time. But what happens in the business ownership world, in the gym ownership world, is when we're in our 20s, we usually don't have as many responsibilities depending on our situation. So we can, I don't know, be a little more lackadaisical, and it's not such a big deal. We're bringing in some money. Life is pretty good. We still have, we think we still have all this time. And then it's like, man, before you know it, there isn't time, and now you're in your 30s, and it's what we sometimes call the messy middle, which is what I'm in also, even though I'm quite a bit past my 30s. But there's oftentimes there's marriages, there's kids, there's aging parents, there's all these things that are on your plate, and you just don't have as much margin. You definitely don't have as much time margin. And when I was in my 20s, man, I could get up early, do the workout, do the business stuff. I can work all day if I wanted. I could do more at night. Now it's just not an option. I have 5 children, and that's a priority, and I just don't have the same margin time wise. And I could say, oh, I'll do this. Like, I have lots of things I want to do, just like you. I want to write a book, and I want to do. Yeah, I'll do this when this settles down. And before you know it, something else pops in, and you just don't have that time. And then you're in your 40s, and now you're like, man, what am I doing now? Because I'm still really caught up in the business, and I really don't have an asset, and things are tight, and maybe there's still some debt into the 40s. That makes it really tough. And that's the kind of thing that happens. So when we're talking about like the owner's operating system, part of that is that mindset and that attitude. And again, specifically, it's the financial stuff, and it's also the things that are really going to move the business forward. Because we want to make sure we're continuing to grow. Specifically with follow-up is a big one. Prospecting, we'll call it. There are so many people that I've talked to about, they're not where they want to be. Their business is still at 10, 15,000 per month, and we like that prospecting. There's lots of things that we need to make sure are getting done, but man, if there are not people coming in the front end, then it's not going to go well. We have to prioritize that. Now, prioritize that, I'm talking about volume. We have to have the volume. We have to, if you want numbers, I mean, if you're not prospecting laser focused for at least 30 minutes per day, it's just not going to happen, and that's probably too low. The very best are doing a lot of it, honestly. I don't know. let's call it up to 4 hours a day. I mean, 2 hours in the early part, 2 hours in the later part. I know it's a lot, but maybe it's 90 minutes each. Maybe it's an hour each. That will make all the difference. And what happens is you get so busy, you're doing all the things, you're doing the training, you're on the floor for 20, 30 hours, and there just isn't enough margin. It doesn't happen. The one thing you're guaranteed is that clients are going to leave, and we all lose clients. I just had a couple of clients move on from programs, and I don't think you ever like that because you really enjoy the people and working with them, but it's a guarantee. Things change, financial circumstances change, people move, and we have to make sure that we're paying attention to bringing people in on the front end so that when those things happen, they don't completely destroy us. So that's one of the things that you'll see in the ones that become that are really building, becoming more successful. It also comes down to pricing, and they're just pricing themselves to the point where it becomes really tough. Trading time for money, it's not a bad thing. We're a professional. That's fine. Even if you're doing one-on-one training and you're doing the work, you still can have a business that does that quietly builds wealth and builds freedom. I think of doctors and lawyers, other professionals, and they have no problem trading their time for $300, $400, $500, $600, $700. It's fine. But when it's when you're trading your time for an amount that, when you look at the full living picture, okay, how much is rent cost in my area, or how much is my mortgage cost in my area, all these other expenses, and just trading my time for an amount that doesn't allow me to live a life based on those expenses is a recipe for disaster. So we have to look at that. We have to look at our pricing. Another common one is we're pricing in a way that it works a little bit when we're doing the servicing, but we neglect to think about how are we pulling ourselves out of this business. There's only so much you can do. If you're training 30 hours a week and you're not charging enough to bring somebody else in where you can still be profitable and then do things with your time to grow the business, it becomes really tough. So it's the pricing, it's the average revenue per member, which is your total monthly revenue divided by the members that contributed to that revenue. So if you don't know that number, I want you to calculate that definitely on a monthly basis. And I even look at that on a weekly basis. I'm looking at any changes that have occurred in that arm, so to speak, the average revenue per member. A lot of these gurus talk about, more members will flood your gyms with dozens of clients, and that all is fine, but all that requires more servicing, more overhead, more work, more things to worry about, more balls that can drop. And I'm not against that kind of growth. I think there's definitely a place for it, but I will argue that the easiest lever is with pricing. And this would be a whole nother episode, but when we talk about pricing, a lot of that is the owner's mindset. It's just like, I wouldn't pay $500 a month, so I can't charge that. Or are we really worth that much? So there's a lot of mindset work that can go into that. And there's also just the practical side of what are we doing? Like, what are the problems that we're solving? If you solve a big enough problem for a person with enough pain, then you can write your own check, so to speak. But if you're just offering a commodity that's really easy for everybody else to offer, we just offer, think about it. We offer personal training, or we offer Pilates, or we inspire, or we help people, or we help a specific niche, a type of a person, right? We help busy executives, or we help, I know the big one now is like people over 40 or people over 50, or you're targeting a specific type of person. And in some ways, the more targeted, the better. But just imagine the difference in the pricing of, we help people with our personal training programs versus we help men over 50 feel like they're 20 years younger. Or that's just just a quick, maybe a terrible example, but you get the idea. Like the guy that's over 50 that wants to feel younger and starting to really start numbering his days and realizing that I don't have as much left that I used to. They'll certainly be happy to pay for a solution to that quote unquote problem. So you can think through that. There's a lot to that. There's exercises and things you can do to determine who you're working with, and then I wouldn't even think about your marketing until you're really clear on who that person is and what you're doing, and then what else from the operating system of the owner? There's really just their own schedule. That's going to be a big part, especially in the early and later stages. But in the early stages, meaning that if you're not optimizing your schedule, doing the things that are going to grow the business, then it doesn't really make sense to just pile a whole bunch of other stuff on it. You have to sort of take care of yourself first, and then you build from there. So think about that. I mean, think about how you're spending your time. Is it the highest leverage for you to do? What are those higher leverage things? I mean, it just depends on your situation, but a lot of that is going to be sales and marketing activities, your sales process. What's your daily prospecting look like? What is your follow-up process? I'm certain that I can help you increase your conversion process by 20%, just based on what you're doing and some other things you can do. So those are the kinds of things that really move the needle. Think about that long term. Like in that example of a 20% improvement on conversions, just run your numbers. Hopefully you have numbers. What are your conversions? You could either do conversion from lead or prospect to sales call, or sales call to a membership. Either one of those. Imagine increasing those 20%, and I'm really confident that with the right skills that you can do that, and would love to see that for you, because that's the last thing I'll end with is the power of marginal gains. We all know that. We all teach that to our clients, and then we forget about it for ourselves. But if you just increase those conversions, I said 20%, but imagine it was even 5%. Run those numbers. Look at your conversions, and then do that math. And your biggest problem, before you know it, is just going to be keeping up with the volume and the revenue that's coming in, and that's a whole nother issue. But I'll just kind of end off here with going back to my story. When that car got taken from us, I kept looking for something's going to happen to help us in this situation, and that's what it took for me. And then I had a hard road ahead of me at that point, and didn't realize all these things. And now I'm hoping to help you prevent something like that happening. But even if it's not, I guess I don't know your exact scenario, but there's a lot of us are just kind of keeping this stuff sort of buried. I had a guy I was talking to, and he was sharing that it's a lot of pressure. He's in that messy middle. There's family, there's clients relying on him. He said he felt like he was at the bottom of a mountain looking up, and like, man, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to handle this mountain? And I'm so happy to kind of walk alongside and help. But that's kind of stuff that if you're feeling that, I don't care how things look on social media. I don't care, what kind of groups you're in or anything like that. I think that this is a very real scenario for so many. And I guess the biggest thing I want you to know is that there is a better path. All this stuff is fixable as long as you're willing to make some changes. And that tomorrow may not come. So do it today. So that's the final question, is what can I do today to start not just making money, but to make and keep money? I hope this was helpful. I will say this too. If you listen to this point, then props to you, because man, we're 30 minutes in and got a little fired up there. But as you can see, I've got some passion about this, because I know the difference. I've been on both sides. I've had those sleepless nights, probably less than I should have, because it's interesting. some people should be more worried than they are, and some people are more worried than they should be. And I was probably not as worried as I should have been, but I was also sort of stuffing it, and it was coming out in other ways. But I know what it's like to get to a different spot and have many more options, and we gotta start today. I will say this: I have a small group. It's called the Profit Growth Group, and I'm opening up a few spots. It's a small group, and intentionally, so that I can give you the support you need. Maybe private high-end coaching is not the deal right now, or maybe it's just not the best need for you. We get together and we help you grow your business profitably, help you win with money, give you the support you need. If something like that is interesting to you, we'd love to chat about it. We're looking for good people that are growth minded, that are looking to grow profits and win with money. We'd love to hear about your interest in that. Got a few spots opening up and looking for some good folks for that. Other than that, stay plugged in. Thanks so much for your time. And if you enjoyed this, let me know. I want to hear your feedback. Listen, if you don't get back to me, I'm going to stop recording this and I am going to quit the podcast. I'm just kidding. I would never do that. But yeah, the encouragement is helpful for me, but also want to engage with you. And if you haven't yet left a review, would love for you to do that. And until next time, you're listening to the Your Fitness Money Coach podcast.